Today on the Cameron Journal podcast, we are doing episode 6 of our happiness series, why you should or should not or should maybe pursue happiness. We have talked about so much, and this time we're going to recap kind of everything that we've been through, everything that we've talked about, everything that we've realized. I'm sure Joe and I will continue to disagree on everything because that's kind of our shtick. Um, but I want to remind everyone that Joe and I are hosting our summit in July 17th and 18th called What is Truth? Refining Your Discernment in an Age of Misinformation. And 17th and 18th of July. For information, head over to summit.suitmedia.net for more info. Because we're doing all of this in support of that, so you can see us together. And if you want to see us talk about more things on truth and information and our modern media ecosystem and Verity and how we deal with that. Joe and I are going to talk about it. We have a great group of speakers, including a lady who's going to teach us how to find it within our body using breath work, which I booked her immediately because I'm like, we're going to be all in our heads. Let's have one session where we're in our body. Um, it's going to be a great time. So for tickets, more info to sign up, all that type of thing, head over to summit.suitmedia.net. If you really want to go and the ticket price, which is 25 bucks for general admission, is a little too much and you just can't swing it on the honor system, Joe and I both have free tickets to give away. So comment below or send an email over to email@cameroncowan.net and we'll hook you up because we got some giveaways to give away. So, welcome back, Joe, to the happiness series.
Thank you again for having me.
Yes, and so this time it's Redux. So let me kind of quickly go over the last 5 episodes before we get started. And then we'll kind of talk about where we actually landed on all this. So in episode 1, we went through what is happiness and why it's worth pursuing, and we decided that happiness was a state of being, but maybe isn't necessarily worth pursuing because it just is. Then we got into happiness as a philosophy, and we learned about engaging with reality kind of on its own terms, which is your Verity thing. Then in episode 3, we did happiness during difficulty and depression and how to not maybe get stuck in all of that by engaging with reality on its own terms. Then in episode 4 we had a great time talking about happiness and culture and how material conditions affect culture, and you talked about the safety and all that sort of thing that matter, people looking for safety and survival, and that, that's why even with like the measurement of the World Happiness Survey and Index and all that type of thing, that factor would maybe change those rankings a lot. We got into Bhutan and their national gross national happiness sort of thing. And then in episode 5, we talked about happiness in literature with Tigger and Eeyore, and we got into happiness as it manifests in story, and with the brothers Karamazov, all this sort of thing. And so we've been on a journey when it comes to all of this, and we've spent most of our time not agreeing on a whole lot, which is always fun, makes for better content. And so what do you think about this whole journey we've been on about happiness? Let's start there.
Well, I mean, it's something that we thought was important to discuss. So once again, just to reiterate, um, I don't know that the journey should be necessarily always about happiness. Although I could here in this last episode walk that back a little bit. Is that I think that that's really the goal of life. Um, is you want to be happy. I mean, I do acknowledge that all of us really do search for happiness and all of us want to be happy. That said, I think that the way that that is achieved is by seeing things for what they really are, and seeing things as they really are, and understanding yourself in relationship to that. So that's where I've said that I think that that's really the goal. And then again, the product um, will be inevitably, in the way that I've put this together, anyways, will be happiness, will be contentment, will be joy. And again, as we've said or defined it previously, happiness is more of a state of being rather than an emotion or a reaction to something. Or I'm happy because of. No, you're happy, given that you understand the way that things are, and you understand yourself, and you love yourself, and you love your life, and you love people, and or the people within your life and those kinds of things. But again, I could argue that even that is necessarily continue. All those things that are exterior to you are have maybe carry with them some degree of contingency with them. Even those who you love close, most and are closest with, that there's a relationship and because they're not you, there's contingent. There's some things that at least within your interaction with them, there's some contingency there that like you can't love someone who you don't know or who um, isn't involved in your life in some way, and whether the level of their involvement is dependent on how involved they might want to be within your life. So in some way, that's contingent as well. The things that are not contingent, what is not contingent truly and really is what you have complete and total control over is you, your thoughts, your concepts, your ideas, your own relationship to the world, and probably most importantly to yourself. And if you don't truly love who you are, how could you be happy? How could you be satisfied? How could you uh, have any degree of contentment or joy, or a relationship, or begin to give happiness to the world if you're not truly happy and content with your own self? So it has to start there. It has to start and end there because again, people cannot love you back. The situation cannot be a perfect one on the outside. Something that you had hoped for doesn't come to fruition. The way that a thing turns out to be, or a person turns out to be, isn't what you had thought or hoped. All those are external circumstances that are at least to some degree beyond our control and are contingent on other factors. What's you have But there is no contingency with or on what there is, or what it is that you have complete control over is your own self, your own thoughts, your own emotional state, even given that you can choose to concentrate on one thing or another. That being said, as we've also mentioned, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be depressed. It's okay to utilize the whole gambit of human emotions in order to understand yourself and understand what it is that you're going through all the better, just in
Yeah.
general. And but as again, we've also mentioned, you don't utilize anything. You don't act any certain ways unless you think that it in some way serves you. If you're going to be sad about something, it's because you think that that sadness serves you in some way. And so in what way or to what degree does it serve you? That's your mission to find out. And once you find that out, I guarantee you, guess what happens is it dissolves. If it, Because if you understand it, if you see what it is, if you see how you think it serves you, then you can see what end there might be in store to its service. And in that way, when you have a clear definition of that for yourself and within yourself, then it will, once it's come to meet its service and its fruit, just the general, fruition, then it will drop away. Uh, and that can be said for most anything that we carry with us, anything that we utilize. And then what is left over is the question after that. So that's where I think you have to have a really good, healthy comprehension of who and what you are. And that takes work. That takes some investigating. That takes some real honesty. That takes a lot of maybe difficult things to look at, see and understand about yourself. So I probably said enough on that. throughout the last.
I didn't really, we didn't really get into that in episode 5. I kind of let that go on because I wanted to focus on other things. But with the whole idea that, you only feel it because it serves you, I could not disagree more.
Mhm.
Um, that's of all the things you've said over all the years, that ranks easily in the top three of crazy things that you've said. Um, I don't think everything. I think that is true of some things. I think some people do intentionally take a certain perspective because it reinforces a narrative about themselves within themselves, whatever have you. And sometimes it's a narrative they've created themselves. Sometimes it's a narrative they were given. But I also think there's a very little control about those things. I think some things that happen that are genuinely horrible, and anybody, I don't care who you are, would feel kind of badly about it. I also worry how the toxic positivity crowd would engage with that sort of thing. Is I don't feel like we have that much control. That belies a level of control over things that I just don't think exists. I think things happen, people do things, people have a complete disregard for the feelings of other people. Like it's not even in their consideration half the time. Um People are going to say or do whatever they think will get them to wherever they want to go. And if they have to crush a few people along the way to get there, they probably will. And you should just anticipate that in advance because very rarely are people going to sacrifice something they want or themselves for you. That's not really a thing most people do. And for the ones that do that, there's sometimes an ulterior motive that's almost worse than the people who crushed you. Um, I think the world is a crazy, insane, chaotic place that is basically totally unhinged. And the only real thing you can do is maybe, and there's no guarantee this is even a thing, you might be able to carve out your own little corner where things are modestly okay. I think there's a lot of people who never even get that chance. And I think there are all sorts of things that happen that people never intended to, and they feel a certain way about it. And some of it's just the natural human emotion. Sometimes it serves an agenda. Sometimes it's just because something adverse has happened, you know? And so I don't think it's always in service of something or that we even have that much control. That's a bit hubristic myself. I think we are objects more than we are subjects when it comes to emotions. And I mean that in the philosophical sense of action versus, action to versus action towards. Um, I think we are objects more than we are subjects because our emotions are a series of biochemical processes in our brains. It's affected by brain chemistry, it's affected by your gut biome, it's affected by your diet, it is affected by your culture, whether you have a word for it, all of these things. Nobody has that much control over all of those things. Not really. And so, how can we just say, "Oh, it's something that serves you"? Well, it probably doesn't most of the time, but that doesn't stop it from being a real natural emotion.
Let's explore it. So you say that we're more or less victims of our emotions. Is that correct?
Most of the time, yeah.
hmm Um, and why is that? Because of an external circumstance? Because you've also said that there's a chemistry that
Yeah.
happens as well.
I mean,
So
I think it depends on the stimuli. I think sometimes it's an external thing, but there's also the body is very good at cooking up its own ideas with its own chemistry, and sometimes it comes from within of its own, and there wasn't really anything outside that caused it. It can
but
be either one.
for the body to orchestrate something like that, let's say it is a chemical reaction, for the body to orchestrate something like that, um, and we're talking about an emotional response here, correct?
Yeah.
For the body to orchestrate an emotional response, what has to happen?
Several chemicals are released in the brain. They go
Not
over to the
okay.
receptors.
But
The
why
receptors
are those
uptake
chemicals
them.
released? Why are those chemicals released in the first place?
We only sort of know how that process works.
I'm not talking
Um,
about the science behind it. I'm not talking about the science behind it. I'm asking why would your body react to a certain thing in a certain way.
Well, I'm a big believer in that whole the body keeps the score thing. So I think whatever you are doing, whatever you do in the world, whatever's happening to you, however you're interacting with temporal m material reality as we know it, the body is constantly looking for signals from its nervous system and releasing the appropriate combination of chemicals to the appropriate receptors to deal with that, handle with that. And then when we become verbal as children, we start to put a name to those chemical reactions that are firing.
But what does the naming have to do with the chemical reaction?
I mean, I think it's the framework we build around it. I mean, if you take
So
a
it's a
1 year,
construct.
I guess because it's a product of language. That's what I say. Like
Okay.
your language, whether your culture and how your culture expresses it, and your language, whether you have a word for it, greatly affects it. Because if you don't have a word for an emotion, but the chemicals happen anyway, you're gonna struggle naming it, or it's gonna get shunted under something else,
But I think that's
sort
my
of thing.
question is does it have a chemical reaction if you don't have a word for it? If you don't have a concept of it?
Yeah, because I think it gets to find like something else, like the color blue. The color blue in antiquity was very rare in nature, so we had other words for it,
Hmm.
sort of thing. I think emotions are the same way when you look at certain indigenous cultures. They don't have words for just they don't have words for it. So it kind of gets glumped under something else.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
don't, so how narrow you define it, I think depends on if you have a word for it and how your culture says it is or is not okay to express it,
But again, if
you
we're
know.
in that, sure. But again, we're talking about then having agency in defining it, right? And then defining it in a certain way, and then we have a reaction to it because we've defined it in a certain way. Correct? That's what you just said, basically.
I mean, I think we're joining the system more than we're defining it, but sure.
Okay. So far as an emotion is concerned, um, because again, if your stance is that we don't have any, control generally over emotions by and large, how can and we're asking this to find out. I'm not asking this because I have another idea necessarily in mind, but how can the body react chemically to something that it doesn't have an idea about, that it doesn't have an experience? If like, okay, let's say there's maybe danger, or maybe you could think of a better scenario. Maybe if you're walking along the trail and there's a tiger breathing down your neck, but you're not aware of it. I mean, there's danger there.
Right.
There's actual physical, real danger there, but you're not aware of it. I mean, what I think we're saying is if it was just all the body, if it was all just a chemical reaction, if this was all just happening within nature, then our body would react to that via the proximity of the tiger. Is that right or not? I
No,
don't.
I mean,
We're
yeah,
asking
no,
to
I
find
mean,
out.
I think to some degree, and we have a little bit of science about how our nervous system can sense things and tell things are there, what we would call gut instinct. That's
Sure.
actually a physical reaction, and we're starting to study that now. So in the tiger in the Amazon scenario, my body might know there's danger and will start queuing up the chemicals and everything for that before my brain has registered, oh, wasn't that a pair of eyes and an orange stripe over there a second ago? Like, sort of thing. Like, because the body will sometimes know before we know in our heads, before the conscious mind has registered something. And then when we see this a lot in trauma work, people
Hmm.
will be like, "Oh yeah, I was going along and then after this age I had a terrible health thing or whatever have you." This happened to me. I became very asthmatic when I was 7 years old.
Hmm.
Um quite likely as a result of some adverse events in my childhood. And I didn't realize that that disease and trauma had a connection. That was how my body was dealing with it. It developed an autoimmune disease. And oftentimes, and we now know, and we're starting to do something about it, where if someone has an autoimmune disease or has a lot of autoimmune diseases, we're not just treating symptoms anymore, we're looking for the underlying trauma. Because those things tend to go together, because that's how the body's reacting to a danger, to a threat, especially when you have like CPTSD, where it's sustained danger and threat over time. It's consistent, it's not a one-off.
But
And
again, okay.
yeah. And
What
so
does that
so
have to do with, because again, your initial contention is that we don't that you thought my statement about we don't use there's nothing that we enact that we don't find useful. That we use everything, that everything we feel, everything we do it, we feel it because we think it is in some way useful.
yeah.
That's and you disagree with that. Fine. But what I'm trying to find out, and then you went on to say that um, there's a physiology more that is way more prevalent than an idea about things so far as emotions are concerned, is that we get emotions mostly from a physical, or that we're victims of emotions mostly.
Yeah.
Um, and so, okay, but so and we can get into the autoimmune, that your own um, journey with that here in a second. But I want to stick with the tiger thing.
Yeah, no, that's
Be-
fine.
Yeah, because I think that's going to help us unpack some things, and it will lead right into,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah. Um, but again, so if your body maybe is aware that there's a danger there, but your brain isn't. Well, first of all, what's the distinguishment between the body and the brain? I think that's something that would have to be explored. But
Oh, yeah.
let's just say
Those
for
those two things do not always work together. Sometimes they're at odds with each other.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm no neuroscientist or anything like that. I'm not a doctor, not a medical professional. Uh, but yeah, so I don't really know about that stuff per se. But what we're trying to again, what we're looking at is whether or not you can have a reaction if you don't have an idea about something. So what happens? So let's say let's grant you the premise that your body is going to react even if your brain or your mind, I think is maybe a better way to put it, is unaware of a danger. Why would your body be reacting to a danger? And what would I mean, and what would be the point of it reacting that way?
Primal need for survival.
So it has a reason, is what you're saying.
I mean, let's face it, we are still organisms on this planet.
Sure.
In our physical bodies, our jobs are to come here, be born, eat, survive long enough to reproduce, and not stick around too much longer thereafter.
So would you say, okay, so given all that, you would say that that's a useful tool for the body, right?
It is useful from a survival perspective, absolutely.
Is it useful for other perspectives?
I mean, I think in that specific scenario, we're on that one, we're mostly focused on survival.
But it is useful.
Yes, of course.
Hmm. And then that utility carries then some kind of emotion, even though, again, the person who's walking along doesn't know that there's actual imminent danger. Maybe the body senses it in some way. And again, that the body senses it, there's some utility there. We can agree on that?
No, certainly, yes.
Okay. Okay. Because again, we're trying to find out whether or not, you know, think that we can have a state without a utility, without needing to have a use for it, or. Um, so this is fun. Um, if the body is just a body, um, and it was designed to survive. Like, why was it designed to survive like that? I mean, what does it have to have an idea about survival in order to want to continue to survive?
No, if we required that, animals would be in big trouble. Um,
What do you
no,
mean by
no,
that?
the
What do you mean
primal
by that?
state continues on. Well, I mean,
Well, that's not an answer.
I'm saying I'm saying that you don't necessarily need the full engagement of consciousness to have an organism that's trying to find a way to survive. That's true for humans, that's true for animals, that's true for planets.
Can you say that again?
That you don't need consciousness to have a survival instinct.
You don't?
No.
Okay.
Animals
What do
don't
you,
know they're animals, but they know how to survive.
you don't think a dog knows that it's not a canary?
No,
Okay. Uh, then why doesn't it eat bird food?
because it's been evolutionary programmed to consume certain
So
things.
programmed.
Well, through natural selection. The ancestors that ate the right food that survived to reproduce kept going, and we ended up with him. Fortunately, dogs can eat pretty much damn near everything. They used to eat in the Middle East. They eat garbage outside the city. Um, and so yeah, I mean, everything that you are is the process of which of your ancestors had the right stuff in order to be able to survive ever more adaptable environments. But like, you can't tell a tiger you're a tiger, and it has no concept of what that means because it doesn't have consciousness. Whereas humans, we're cursed. We both know what we are and what is going on, and we're not just going off of the instinct to survive, reproduce, and survive to reproduce again, sort of thing. We're not stuck in that constant survival reproduction like animals are. We actually have awareness of what is going on, can make other decisions, can plan, can coordinate, all this type of thing, all those things that consciousness allows us to do. We can create language. This is Heidegger now. Language to define those things. Animals can't do that.
Okay. I mean, there's a different kind of consciousness there. I'm pretty sure a dog knows what it is, or a tiger knows what it is. It might not have the exact, idea that we do about them and about other kinds of being, but
I
um,
think elephants know they're elephants, and I think whales know they're whales. They're very smart, smarter than we give them credit for. Those two animals, I think, might have a form of conscience. We just don't understand it
okay,
yet.
okay.
Yeah.
Regardless, going back to again the physiology behind all of this. Why would your body be programmed to survive in the first place, though? I mean, like, what's the point of
Because
that?
if you don't survive, you can't reproduce. If you can't reproduce, your species goes extinct.
So it's all biological. So is there anything so biology just happens just on its own accord without any aim?
I mean,
Because
insects, insects certainly maybe
well, no,
operate that way.
everything that you
Certain
just said
phylum
that
of
it had
rodentia.
basically
Um,
everything that you just said though said it has an aim towards survival.
well, I mean, if you're an organism on this planet, you have two jobs: survive and reproduce.
So those are your aims.
You've got two main jobs. A lot of at the very base level, before we layer on culture and consciousness and all that stuff on top of it, ultimately, from a purely evolutionary biological perspective, your job is to keep your species going, survive long enough to reproduce so there's more of you, and be the most adaptable one you can be in order to do that.
How
That's the
how,
basic mission.
how is that not an aim, like a conscious aim though?
Because I don't think we have to consciously decide to do it. It just simply
Right.
is.
We don't, right. Sure, exactly.
It
Precisely.
just
It
is.
just
It
is.
continues, it's like
Correct.
breathing, sort of thing.
Sort of. Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing when you do studies. If I, on this screen right now, put up a picture of 10 attractive women, there's an immediate physiological change in our bodies because our body immediately is kind of like, ah, she's excellent for reproduction. I should reproduce with her because that's part of the, because we're men and that's
Yeah,
part of our job,
yeah,
sort of thing. And there's immediate physiological changes that go along with that. The same thing, if I did something that was incredibly terrifying or was a threat, there's a physiological change because we identify it as a threat. Same thing with the disgust response, all this type
yeah.
of thing. So, but a lot of those things tend to be more cultural and what you're sort of thing. Survival and reproduction, it doesn't matter where you are on the planet, what culture, everybody has a word for it. Ultimately, those are two things you kind of can't avoid. You're stuck with them.
Yeah, but so as you just said though, um, we have a recognition of something that we want to do. So even in, these the just basic survive and reproduce, um, sort of subsistent state that base things are in within the world, is that not, is that aim not intentional? I mean, it seems to be very intentional, right? I mean, you just said the whole basic premise of being on this planet or with organisms is to survive and reproduce.
Yes.
How could they try and do that without intention of trying to do that?
No, I think there is intention there, but it doesn't require conscious intention. No, you're not thinking on how to breathe right now. In the same way you don't have to think about trying to survive. That's why mothers will lift, cars off their children. All this, there is a certain amount of survive, reproduce that are there no matter what. Sometimes you can't consciously access them. The body or the nervous system does it together and you don't even know it. It's just like breathing. When we start layering consciousness on top, which is what humans get are cursed with, then we get to decide the how, the when, the why, with who, all this type of thing. In an animal, if I put a female in with a male and nobody's fixed, I'm going to have babies, whether
Yeah,
I like it or not.
yeah,
Babies are going to happen. Ask anyone
but
who ranches cattle. Sort of thing. They buy a bull, they put it to the field, and that's how you get calves next year. Whereas as humans, we get to decide, we get to set our intention, um, and we can decide whether or not we want to reproduce or not. When it comes to survival, we can decide whether to survive or not. Animals very rarely commit suicide. All this sort of thing. We get to play with these things and these concepts, and we have emotions and how we feel about them and how we process these things. Animals process, emotions in a different way and trauma in a different way than we do because they're not burdened by consciousness. What fucks all this up for humans is we have consciousness, and that changes the whole game.
I think you have to be very careful when you talk about what consciousness is, because I would argue very strongly that everything is conscious, that everything has an awareness of something, of either themselves or of their relationship to the world. So, but I think I certainly get what you mean.
That's very Shinto.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Eastern thought
Yes.
about all sorts of
No,
stuff,
that that's
as
that's
you
very
know.
that's very that's
Like,
very Shinto. Like if you bump into a tree, you apologize because it's a consciousness
yeah,
sort of thing.
well, yeah,
Yes. So
but again, so just to kind of go back to the scenario with the tiger there, and I'll kind of skip ahead, because what I'm driving at here is that I think it seems like. Um, it seems like from what we've said and from my own ideas about this, which might be wrong, but I'm willing to accept that. But it seems like that you have to at least in some way, even the body itself has to at least have an idea about danger in order to react to danger. So even if the
yeah,
body doesn't quantify, well, and that's what I'm saying. And so this whole thing got started with me asking about, can we have something? Can we hold something? Can we have an emotion? Can we have a thought? If we don't think it has any utility for us? And my contention is absolutely not. And so if you are saying, so I'm just going to skip ahead to the
yeah,
last chapter.
yeah, yeah,
So if
yeah.
you are saying that everything's just a physiological process, I would tell you that okay, I could concede that. And yet still the physiology still has an idea about whatever it is that is causing it to have the sort of chemical release or the reaction that it does. And that idea itself, because it wants to survive or it wants to reproduce or it wants to eat or whatever, that idea holds utility for it because it has an idea of wanting to continue. It has an aim, it has an arc, it has a way by which it thinks, to use the word loosely, but maybe
Right.
not so much, that it
Yeah.
will, the way that it thinks it should subsist and continue. And so this is where, again, skipping way ahead, because I could have continued on this line with you, and the real
We only
simple
have 20 minutes. That's
whatever. But the real simple
yeah.
thing is to really simplify this is if there's a tiger there and you aren't aware of it, are you afraid? You're not, because you're not aware.
Right.
So but you're afraid, and the fear for you has utility. You think it has utility because being afraid, and I'm not saying it doesn't, because if you're afraid, you're like, oh, that fear is going to keep me alert and on edge and protected. And what I'm saying is that again, you wouldn't have that thing, whatever it is, if you didn't think happiness, sadness, what everything in between, you wouldn't hold on to that if you didn't think that it gave you something to utilize and to move forth with. And this can be a conscious choice or an unconscious choice. I'm just saying that you wouldn't have it unless you needed it or you thought that you needed it in some way, even if it wasn't a conscious thought per se.
I still think that assumes a great deal of control over emotions that I just don't think
That's
exists.
fair. That's totally
Like,
fair. Yeah.
like
It's
that
not
is
true, but it's
yeah.
fair.
I mean that assumes a lot of because because that would then it's like, well, you could just decide to not do that tomorrow.
Well,
And I
sure, you could.
and I would any if anyone proposed that seriously, I would laugh in their face and just quit engaging with them.
If the
Like, because
tiger,
it's like there's
well, I just said
no
that to you. I just
it's
said you could.
like
You could.
it's like
But I know you won't shut off the camera. We're having too much fun, like I said. But like, if you could acknowledge the tiger and the tiger, and you could be like, well, I'm just not going to be afraid of it because I'm not afraid of tigers, or I'm not afraid of death, or I just don't think this thing's going to harm me, or whatever. So it's still, you do have choice, and your initial reaction could be fear. It could be absolute terror. Absolutely, you see the tiger, or recognize it in some way, absolute terror. But then you have a choice to continue to be terrified, panic, and run, which would probably provoke the tiger to chase you. Or you
right.
could be like, okay, I'm going to hold my ground. I'm going to just stay very still. I'm going to arm myself in whatever way I can to be prepared, but I'm going to act and walk on as calmly as I possibly can. Those two things are very different choices, and you have absolute agency over them, regardless of the circumstance that's awaiting you out there in the brush.
I mean, as someone who's done a fair bit of backcountry camping in Colorado and has had to deal with large felines, quite honestly, though, I would rather deal with large felines in the mountains of Colorado at altitude than 98.5% of anything else going on in my life at any different moment. Like, when I was younger, I used to wonder why people moved to a cabin in the woods like the Unabomber. And at almost 40, all of a sudden, I agree with the Unabomber. Like, all of a sudden, I'm kind of like, get me a cabin in the middle of nowhere. Because yeah, to some degree, the tiger's almost safer. Like, because then you're not stuck with consciousness and civilization and people's expectations and what you think you want or what is possible or trying to do something and be able to believe in it or whatever have you. Like, all of that falls
Why is that all a
away.
problem? Why is that all a problem?
I mean, I think for a lot of people it isn't a problem.
Why?
Um, I think
Now, I would
because
ask again,
they just,
why isn't a problem for them and it is a problem for others?
I mean, I think there are some of us that
Because of physiology?
no, I mean now we're into consciousness culture things like that. We're moving up the tree now. Um, I think there are some of us that look out. or looked out, I'll use the past tense because I don't do it anymore, looked out into the world and thought, this is a wonderful, amazing, rich, amazing place. If I, put myself out there and contribute to it, then that will, come back to me tenfold, whatever have you. And a lot of people very quickly find out that could not be farther from the truth. Other people never concerned themselves with such things. They figured out the stuff they like to do, the stuff they wanted to be interested in, and the rest of it just simply never got on the radar. And I think in my mind, especially at this stage of life, I think option two is probably the wiser one to do. If you're trying to expect the world to give anything back to you, you will be sorely disappointed. Ask me how I know. Email at CameronCowan.net. I'll tell I'll be happy to get you up to speed. Um, I think if you're expecting the world to offer you anything other than cold banality, you will be severely disappointed. You'll be very lucky if you can find a few people along the way who are kind to you. And I think in life, it's far, far better simply to try to find a few people you like and love, a few things you love and enjoy to do, and pretty much let the rest of it go. Some people are in a privileged position to have an outside effect on the world, on society. They get to do things that is not true for the vast majority of us. Not that if you're ambitious, you shouldn't go try to grab the brass ring. If you want to pursue that, absolutely go for it. But also know that a lot of that has a fairly high failure rate. In this way, I think Europe has sort of figured out because of the way their society is structured and all this type of thing, the vast majority of people will never have any upward mobility and therefore they don't care. They got themselves some workers' rights, and the French will be will be at home with a bottle of wine and a baguette. In our society, we've done things a bit differently. We used to have upward mobility, we don't anymore, and so people were encouraged to go out and do certain things. I think at this stage of life, for me, it's far more important to have the great people, the great hobbies, all this type of thing than trying to remake the world or conquer the world or get it to love you, respect you, or care about you in any way. There's a certain cold banality to the world that I never accounted for, but I think is very important. And I think if happiness is worth pursuing, it really is the small things. Who are your friends? Who are your family? I don't really have any family anymore. But who are your friends? I'm down to friends. I'm dying alone anyway. I'm down to friends. Find your friends, find your hobbies, try to carve out your own little corner where you can survive and do those things. And that's kind of it. That's really it. That's so mind-crushingly disappointing to me. I cannot begin to express it, but I also can't deny its truth. It really the Hallmark call cards are correct, everyone. It really is about the small things. It's friends, family, and some things you enjoy, and that's it. Everything else really starts to fall away. The world is never going to give back to you the same way that those important things can. It is the absolutely most crushing, disappointing thing I think I've ever really realized, but it is 110% true. And it's
I
quite
would
sad.
say, yeah, I would say it's 110% not true at all. But because again, well, no, that's not true. That's also not true. I would say it's only 110% true if you 110% believe it to be true. Uh, uh, again, it's all about the definitions that you hold. It's all about the ideas that you have. It's all about the way in which you go about constructing this relationship that you have with the world and way more importantly with yourself. I think at the end of this is all about the acceptance, the perception, the understanding, the grace that you allow, give, um, interact with within your own self and with and through yourself. Um, because again, even when you're talking about the little things, I hear you, but I mean, this is our hour one conversation. Those are still
Yeah.
external things, man. Those are still external things.
No, no,
You're
I
not
was
going to find happiness. True happiness is not in the external. It's in you. It's in your heart. But I would say more accurately,
no,
it's
I
in
think
your
that's but I think that's the most depressing thing ever.
that you have
I
complete and
think
total
that
control
fact.
over your own destiny. That's the most depressing thing ever.
No, not one. You don't have total control of your own destiny. Everything's determined by fate. Free will is a lie. That's a whole. We could
Well,
do a whole
okay,
series on that.
what I mean by that is
But
is you have the destiny of your perception. Maybe
I
is
mean, yes. I mean, I mean, I'm not sad about like, oh, you can decide whatever have you, or that's all external. You can, or you can decide for yourself, or it's inside yourself. I think what's incredibly disappointing is the outside world is so unreliable that we have to fall back onto that. Reality could be kind.
and
Reality
who's
could
to say
see.
that it's not if you get your interiority in order?
There
How
are
come it's not?
there are people dying from Ebola in Africa right now.
Viktor Frankl went through the most horrific, unimaginable thing a human being could probably go through 4 years.
And yet he was a very hopeful person. Man's Search for Meaning is the book Joe's referencing. It's excellent. I've read it twice. Mostly because my when I was growing up, Nana always she bought that for me when I was like 15,
So
and
how
she
could
got me to
it?
read
So if
it.
what you're saying is true. How could anyone, anyone like Viktor Frankl, possibly come out with that prerogative? How it would be impossible.
I I'll admit I've never understood it myself. Like
Mhm.
I've never
Well,
understood it.
mm,
It's never really made a whole. I get it kind of conceptually, but like emotionally in my own self, I've always found the phrase like, "Oh, well, how are you with it?" to always be a bit empty and hollow. And I'm like, I don't care how I am with it. I want it to change. Like, and the
yeah, but
world is very inflexible that way. So then
yeah.
all you are left with is changing yourself about it. And for me, at a personal level, the only thing that ever helps is time and distance from it.
hmm
I never
I,
really get used to it or feel any different about it or find some silver lining. It just fades in the background.
I think what I could tell you
It's
is,
miserable.
well, but that's your definition again. I mean, we could probably edit this whole series into like me being like, dude, that's what you think, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
and you being like, no. Uh, but again, if a person like Viktor Frankl, who went through the Holocaust, could come out with the perspective that, that life is worth living and that humanity is worth saving and that in general I can be a hopeful and happy person. I think the only conclusion we can make from that, and I mean, think about all the people who have gone through tragedy and difficulty and again, they still get up every day and they face the world and they do things and even though it's hard and even though things maybe are never the same, they still have the idea that there's more out there, that there's more to learn, that there's more to do, that there's more love to give and to be had, and that all is worth experiencing. And again, it's not because it's not based necessarily on an external circumstance. It's based on the ideas, the internality that you've constructed, the foundation that you have uh, is going to be stronger than anything on the outside world if you set it properly. So
And my question is, why is that all there is?
what do you mean? Why is what all there is? Why is your interiority all there is?
Yeah, or why is it, why is it clinging to, our friends, our family, the people,
It's not clean.
that we
That's what I'm
love, the
saying. It's
things
not.
that matter, or
Not.
ourselves, or how we are with it, or whatever. Like that's, it's like, okay, that's it. That's
Have I
very
been on mute for these
dissatisfying.
past 6 hours? Let me see. No, I haven't been. It's not. It's about your own construction. I don't think you want to. I don't think you want to deal with it. I don't think. I think that you're happy being miserable, and that you see that it's in your best, that you think that it's in your best interest to do so, so that you can grapple and deal with the world and criticize and be angry about stuff and be depressed. I mean, because that's the utility that you see that you gain from it. Where what I'm telling you is And maybe, that's all you've ever known. So that's just what, but I'm telling you, there's a way out, and that's for everybody. It takes work, it takes understanding, and it takes acceptance. First of all, the first thing you have to accept that things are just what they are. That's the first thing. If you can't accept things, then you're never going to be able to deal and grapple with them on their own terms. You have to accept things. And you can,
No, see, you know that you lose me from the. I was telling
right,
someone about this. You've lost me from the beginning because I
well, there
cannot
you go.
accept things the way they are. Like
Then
I
I
just
think we should end
absolutely
here because I
cannot.
don't know
Like
that we have much
it's
more to talk
terrible.
about. Yeah, because
Well, it's a good thing this is the last episode, so this is good. I mean, this is good. I mean, I think the step one you're talking about is the absolute hardest part, and I think
I would tell you it's
I
the
think it's
easiest
very
part.
important.
I would tell you
But
it's
to
the
me, I
easiest
think
part. Just
it's the
accept it.
very hardest part.
I think I that's not true. It's the easiest thing to just accept things. Just okay, it's just what it is. All right, and then from there we deal with it. Why is it hard to accept things as they are just are? Because you have an idea that they shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
That's why. Right.
Yes, I agree.
Ah,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, like yes. Oh my goodness, a breakthrough. Like yeah, like I immediately look at a situation, I'm kind of like, well, that's not right. That's incorrect. Why is that way? Who
right.
didn't stop this? Who's in
Exactly.
charge here?
So
Like
if
that's
you're always confronting things in that way, how could you ever grapple with them in a way that is going to benefit you and that situation because you don't accept it first and foremost. Like if you have someone who you want to act in a different way, if you don't accept the way that they're acting currently as just what it is, then how could you ever get through to them before by saying, "No, I need you to change, and then I'll respond to you the way that you want me to." No, but first I need you to change. No, that's not how you do it. And the same thing is with the world and or with anything that you encounter. You have to accept it. And acceptance, by accepting it, you're loving it. And you're forgetting about yourself. Anytime you're not accepting things, it's an ego thing. It's like, well, I can't stand for that. My ego won't allow. Well, fuck your ego. Who said it's about you? It's not about you. It's not about you at all. You have to look at what it is, accept it for what it is, then you can let it in, and then you can interact with it and engage with it in the way that it needs to be interacted and engaged with. Until you're able to do that, though, and it's the easiest part for sure. The tough part happens to be getting your ideas and your mind or your consciousness constructed in a way that allows for you to be able to then conceptually square that per se. But you don't even have to do that. Again, you can just accept things and then again, as long as you always have acceptance about things, and as long as you understand that you and it will always persist and always continue, even though you're going to do that in different stages and phases and times and all of that, but it all continues, it all persists, then you got nothing but time. So let's just keep working it out, and that's what we're all here for.
no, no, and this is what no, this is so good because you proved the point I've always joked privately to friends. If I were a medieval king, I would call myself Cameron the Disappointed.
Yes, you said that,
Um,
which
yes,
is
because
funny, by the way.
yeah, yeah, thank you. Because I find 99.5% of things to be incredibly disappointing.
But
Um,
but then you're
which
making it about you.
always, yeah,
That's
which
about you.
I
I
know.
find this disappointing. I find it.
Yes, yeah.
So what? Who cares? Nobody cares about you, what
I
you find disappointing. Nobody cares.
I know, and
Big news.
I definitely and I know I agree with you. I know that is true.
It's
I
not you,
always say
Cameron. You don't
one of
understand. Yeah, I think you're brilliant. I think you're amazing. I think you're
no,
fun.
no, I was going to say
And I do.
one of the darkest days of my life was the day I basically figured out what you just said. And I basically didn't speak for 3 months. I'm not
Why
even
did you
no
think it was dark?
because it was the most because I
Wait,
how do
wait.
I
Sorry, maybe I'm misunderstanding. What did you think was dark, or what was it that you thought was dark?
because I realized no one would ever really care about me.
That's not true, dude. That's not true. You have to
No, I
care
mean
about
that
yourself. You have
I
to
don't
accept yourself.
matter.
You
I
have to
don't
accept yourself.
matter.
Well, see, there you go. So
That's
because you
that's
don't
not what
accept yourself.
that's
You
not
don't
what but
accept
that's
yourself.
not what I'm looking for. I don't
You
need to
clearly
accept
are,
me
because
any
we just spent
more than I
2 hours on a
have.
happiness series. That was your idea.
Yes, I
Yeah, so
know.
it clearly is something that's important to you.
not the happiness and end of things I find incredibly curious, and it all started because I
Why do
said,
you
"Oh
find
yes,
it
I
curious?
quit optimizing for it years ago because I thought it was a waste of time."
But clearly
All
not,
I'm
because again, we just did 6 episodes on it.
all
I would have been like, you
all
want to talk
I'm
about happiness for like 20 minutes? We can figure this out real quick.
all I'm saying is that I don't necessarily feel the need of any more acceptance of myself. The reason, to answer your question, the reason why it was the darkest day of my life is because I realized nobody else was ever going to care about me as much as I cared about myself. Everything else would be a little bit lesser. And that meant that the ultimate was only on myself. And I found that
Okay.
incredibly sad and depressing. And then
But
I
then,
literally had a problem speaking for 3 months.
but
Like I
then
couldn't
again,
record, I couldn't do
why?
anything. My brain just broke.
But why would you? And I'm not asking this critically, but why would that be your take on it, right? Why would you find that depressing? I mean, and I'm not even asking you to explore that right now, but you have to
Yeah.
act because again, you found some utility in thinking that way or in feeling that way, and why did you think that that was useful? And that's not a critical question.
The
Uh,
only thing I'll say before we close, because you got to go in 5 minutes, the only thing I will say to your point, life did become, after I got through that realization and after I got through the 3 months of nonverbal depression, which led to a very embarrassing moment at a meeting for my alumni association at one point, all this type of thing. Things were easier after that, I think mostly, and the Buddhists would clap and be very proud. I dropped a lot of expectations of other people subsequently after that, and I just kind of I reprogrammed the system to anticipate everyone would be somewhat disappointing, began to expect that, and life became a lot easier. And I learned to better to meet people where they were and not really put my ideas of myself onto them. It even happens with personal development and business, all this type of thing. It recalibrated the whole system sort of out of that and into, who's there, who are they? They will probably be disappointed to whatever idea you have in your head. So discard that immediately. And what have you got? Um, but it was one of the darkest periods of my entire life because I felt like, wow, yeah, just nobody's ever going to care about me at the level that I wish they could or feel they should. But life got easier when I quit expecting that. Basically, I quit expecting the world to bend over backwards for me and life got
well,
easier, which is
right. So
very
you
sad to
accepted
say,
things
but
as they
that's, yeah.
were. You accepted things as they were, and you don't know, man. You might find some number of people that actually do care about you more than you ever thought possible. And I guarantee that will be the case if you keep exploring and searching it. And if that's a priority for you, you will find those people. All of us will. All of us will find whatever it is that we're looking for. That's the beauty and the danger of it all.
I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are caught up in a lot of their own things, and you can't, people can't pour from empty cups. You certainly cannot expect them to give you more than they give themselves. That's a big one because if they can't give it to themselves, you're
Right.
last in line, sort of thing. Um, and so I think you have to really let all of that go and just see what they do. What do they actually do? What do they actually what can they actually offer? And if that's okay, or that's good enough, or that's is satisfying or whatever have you, or you just like, then it's fine. So you begin to release a lot of these different ideas and whatnot. And yeah. So it was a very dark period, and very honestly, Joe, and then we'll go. Um, I've never been right since then. I've never felt right since then.
Again, I mean, and I'm sorry to hear that, I mean, Cameron, there's a lot of people that I know do care about you. I'm one of them. Again, I think you're amazing. I mean, we've had a great working relationship. I'm sad that Cameron Journal is going away and all of that. And if this is the last episode, so be it, I guess. But I think you have a lot to offer. But I also think you need to make sure that you understand and that you accept yourself first and foremost, because that and it is the easiest thing to do in a lot of ways. I understand how they can be a very difficult thing because we all have that struggle, but we only put those weights on us because we think that they need to be there in order to get through a certain thing or to see something or that it needs to be hard or whatever. Whatever idea we have. I'm just saying it's ideas all the way down.
No,
And you've got
one of the best things my friend Griffin, who passed last November, ever asked me, because he watched how I worked with people, and I worked with models who'd never walked in heels before. I taught them about walking heels, and he said, "You extend so much grace and kindness to everyone else but yourself."
well, there's something to that then, right?
And I
Because
and I and I
yeah.
answered him, and I said, because I hold myself to a higher standard.
Well,
I
and
hold
that's
myself I
okay.
hold
That's
myself
okay.
to an impossibly high standard that I myself cannot meet, and therefore will always fail. But
Listen, that you understand that about yourself, that's the first step, I would say. I
yeah,
mean,
it's a very sad,
well, but you,
sad thing.
why is it sad? Why does it have to be sad? Oh my gosh, why did you just define it as sad? It doesn't have to be sad. It can be a very happy thing. It's how you define it. Arrgh.
All right, everyone. Joe has a hard out because we rearranged a meeting to do this, episode 6 in one session. I want to remind everyone that if you want to hear more of this tomfoolery going on, come to our summit, What is Truth? Refining Your Discernment in the Age of Misinformation, where we will not talk about happiness, we'll talk about everything else going on in the world. Um,
Well, that should be
and
happy.
it's on July 17th and 18th. Head over to summit.suitmedia.net. I want to thank everyone for sticking with us through this whole series. This is the second to last episode of the Cameron Journal podcast. We'll have one more interview with Dale Kushner that will come out after this, and then that's curtains for us. So thank you so much, Joe, for doing this series with me. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Again, happily. I think you're awesome, Cameron. I mean, I hope that, uh, I think things will continue to go well for you if you let them, because you got all the talent, all the capacity in the world. And you just got to be accepting of yourself and realize and acknowledge that, and it'll happen for you, man. It just naturally will fall into line for you because it can't not, given everything that you are.
Well, you should let the universe know that.
I
Anyway,
just did. You
we
should let
gotta
the
go.
universe know that. That's the only one it's going to listen to.
That's all for this episode of the Cameron Journal podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Visit us online at CameronJournal.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and I love to talk to my followers and listeners, so please feel free to get us on social media at Cameron Cowan on Twitter, and we'll see you next time on the Cameron Journal podcast.